An obsession is something that preoccupies the mind in a destructive or unhealthy way. Obsessed people become fixated on a single goal.
Robert, we need the cartoon. Oh.
Sometimes the goal gives them pleasure, but other times they just need to finish or accomplish something. David Fincher's Zodiac is a film about people and their obsessions. The film starts with the Zodiac killer as he commits his murders. He is obsessed with killing and the attention that he receives from the media. Our focus falls on the killer while he plays games with the newspapers and the police.
If you cops think I'm going to take on a bus the way I stated I was, you deserve to have holes in your heads.
But then the killings stop in the first act, leaving the main characters looking for the Zodiac for the rest of the film.
Business as usual.
Something will shake loose.
Not a peep in 4 months.
What the audience believes is the main storyline is only the setup for the real story. Robert Graysmith's obsessive decline into madness. And with David Fincher's directorial prowess and a brilliant script, the audience follows Graysmith into his madness, silently justifying each of his actions as he makes them. 3 things fuel the audience's attachment to Graysmith. The first is the painful passage of time. With each major passage of time, the chances of finding the Zodiac get smaller and smaller. These chunks of time go by in seconds for the audience, which means we understand why Graysmith still desperately searches for the killer. Fincher continues to show these major gaps in time with simple title cards, time lapses, and the longest increment of time is just a black screen with audio of historical events playing.
Have concluded an agreement to end the war and bring peace with honor in Vietnam.
Charles Manson for the Tate LaBianca mass murder, pleaded guilty in the Chowchilla.
While the audience understands these leaps in time, we don't feel the time the same way the characters in the film do. The gaps do not stifle our desire to find out the identity of the Zodiac. This is how the audience attaches itself to Graysmith, because he is the only character unfazed by the passing time. Everyone else moves on and forgets about the Zodiac.
Nobody has more Zodiac crap than you do.
When Paul Avery, the lead reporter on the Zodiac, eventually loses interest in the case, this hurts Graysmith.
I'm sorry I bothered you.
He turns to Inspector Tosky, but even he has pushed the case to the back of his mind.
Mr. Graysmith, Zodiac hasn't written in 3 years. You know how many murders we've had in San Francisco since then?
The further we move forward in time, the lonelier Graysmith becomes. The second reason the audience feels so attached to Graysmith is because we feel his frustration each time he hits a dead end. We understand his anger at the loss of evidence and the lack of care shown by other individuals surrounding the case.
Can I give you a piece of advice? You're looking in the wrong place. Handwriting, fingerprints, that's what this whole thing's about. Stick to the evidence.
Graysmith gets more and more desperate and begins to lose his grasp on the truth. When he goes and visits the woman in prison, we watch as he begins to lose his rationality.
It was Rick.
No, it wasn't.
It was Rick Marshall.
No.
Just say it.
He has heard evidence contrary to what he believes so much that he denies the evidence in front of him if it does not fit into his theory. He is strangling his own goals in the process of trying to find an end to his obsession. When Graysmith's wife confronts him about his obsession, we understand exactly what Graysmith's mindset is.
I need to know who he is. I need to stand there. I need to look him in the eye. And I need to know that it's him.
He has to know. As time continues to pass and others stop caring, the third point becomes the conclusion of the previous 2. Graysmith is the only one who can provide the resolution the audience needs.
Because nobody else will.
We have spent so long watching these characters go over evidence and chase leads as they move closer and closer to finding the Zodiac. But Graysmith never gives the audience what we want. We never get the satisfaction of watching an arrest, or the feeling of knowing for sure, and neither does Graysmith. His obsession to know who the Zodiac was is never fully satisfied. Graysmith thinks he figured it out, but he can't know for sure.
The ciphers, the military boot prints, the same size shoes and gloves, the most dangerous game, the Zodiac watch, the background of school children, the misspellings of Christmas, the bloody knife.
All circumstantial.
This film starts out making the audience believe this is a story about an obsessed killer and how different he is from the everyday person. But slowly we understand. This is a film about a regular person who just couldn't let it go. A man who couldn't just walk away without knowing. Graysmith destroyed the lives of those around him, and he dragged us into his world. And in the end, we see two people, face to face, willing to do whatever it takes just to satisfy their obsession, just to get the unscratchable itch scratched. And we realize they aren't that different from each other.
To find that I was by the sea, gazing with tranquility. Just then when the hurdy-gurdy man came singing songs of love. Then when the hurdy-gurdy man